just for wishes and dreams that had never come true. The box would be empty except for the memory of how they are answered by you. But there never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do once you find them. I've looked around enough to know that you're the one I want to go through time with.
Aren't we blessed? Yeah? Come on, one more round of applause. I said, do you think we could do time in the bottle? Oh, of course we could do time in the bottle. Thank you. Full-time, part-time, some of the time. High time, time zone, time consuming in real time. Just in time, time warp, moving time, time travel, good time, take time. Time sheet, time startup, overtime, time out, timeline, time frame. Any time at the same time, lead time, Greenwich time, how about time? How about daylight savings time? Long time, seek time, time signature, run time, hang time, time machine, quality time, time. That was fun. We'll do that more often. Time, time, time. In a bottle, in a box, it doesn't matter. Dr. Seuss would have said probably in a bottle, in a box, with a fox, without a fox. In your socks, no socks. It doesn't matter. It's all time. And it's all man-made. Now, I'll be less gender specific. It's all human-made, but there are a lot of times I want to blame men for the way time runs.
No.
Yeah. So there's a man, he'd been driving all night, and he decided he really ought to stop and rest. Because he just was, doing that thing behind the wheel. Oh, dear. Yeah, oh dear. So he finds this beautiful park, and he pulls off into the park, and he stops and gets all settled in, and he realizes that he is parked next to the main jogging trail through this park. But that's okay, runners are quiet. So he leans back in his seat, and he just gets settled in, and knock, 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 knock on his window. So he has to turn the key on, of course, to lower the window, because we don't roll windows down anymore. And he says, yes. And this person says, hey, mister, you got the time? He said, yeah, it's 8:15 a.m. So he rolls the window back up, gets all settled in, just drifting off into twilight land, right? Just right there. Hey, mister, you got the time? Yes, it's 8:30. So he says, you know what? I'm going to be proactive. I'm not going to let this bug me. I'm going to be proactive about this. So he takes a piece of paper and he writes, I don't know what time it is. And he sticks it on his little window. So he settles in, he thinks, okay, got that handled. And then he hears, rolls the window down, and the gentleman says, it's 8:45. Does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? I thought about that Chicago song, but I thought that might be stretching it a bit. So this is what Einstein tells us. He's kind of the king of time. He's the guy that brought it all together and helped it make sense. He's the guy that says, do you know that time is 13 seconds different the closer you are to the sun? So when you're on the top of Mount Everest, it's actually a different time. How about that? The only reason he says for time is so that everything doesn't happen at once. He hasn't been in my life. Does everything ever happen at once? Only all the time. He also says this, that time and space are modes by which we think, but not conditions by which we live. Time is a tool. Now in my life, and I may be the only one in the room, I use it as a weapon against myself a lot of times. I separate myself from my greatest expression when I get in a hurry. Anybody else? Those little horns pop out. Inanimate objects, and we're calling them names. Is this only me? And this is what we do with time when we turn it into a weapon. 25,915 days in the life of the average human being. Now don't start counting them down. Careful, careful, don't do that. On the average, we spend about 180 of those days exercising. I, for one, have some catching up to do. There are 7,709 days that we spend sitting. That's kind of refreshing, isn't it? 1,765 days on an average we spend connecting and socializing and being with each other. I thought that was kind of impressive, right up until I read this one. 10,625 days we spend looking at our phones or some sort of a screen. Most of us laugh 481,760 times in a lifetime. I would love to have been the guy that got to collect that information. Some of us laugh more. Some of us laugh less. No wonder some days it seems that we just don't have enough time. Just had a conversation, just said something to Alice this morning. She said, you know, she got up, she didn't need as much time as she thought. Wow, she's got all this time. And of course, then she started doing things. And then she was like, oh, I'm almost late. No matter time, money, and space, no matter how much of it you have, you will use it up. Have you noticed that? It's just the way of it. And time was established as a tool. But when we start to consume it at the levels and the degrees that we do currently, and try to squeeze as much in that 24 hours as we possibly can, it can become a weapon. Charles Fillmore in The Revealing Word tells us this: time is the measure that we give to passing events. The only power, now check this out, the only power in time is what man imparts to it. When man gets into the understanding of the absolute and the absolute being, that we are one with God, when man gets into the absolute, he takes his freedom from all bondage of time and declares that time shall no more enter into the substance of his mind, his body, or his affairs. Thank you, Chuck. Freedom from all bondage of time. Just breathe that in for a moment. It's right there that you get to remember that you are an infinite spiritual being. Right there. I like that feeling. Because I'm the one that says, can't I just have 26 hours in a day? Can't I just do one more thing? Can't I just be a little more productive? It's right there when we recognize that the freedom from the bondage of time is in that moment that we realize the power we give to it is all on us. Now, I got to tell you, this week in my 59-year-old life was the first time I got my head wrapped around that. That was really huge for me because I fight with time all the time. And most of the time, it wins because that clock just does the same thing. It just keeps going around and it keeps reading those same numbers. I impart the power to that. Who would you be and how could you show up in this world if you remembered that you impart the power to that? How could you become a greater expression if you had the power over time? And you do have it. When was the last time that you embraced the concept of time and woke up and said, I have a whole day in front of me. I have a billion opportunities to be the expression that I am called into today. And I can do it 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day at a time. I can be that today. And I have been given this measure, this mode of measurement, that at the end of the day, I can look at it and I can say, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God, could have done that better, thank you, God, thank you, God, should have done that more, thank you, God. And I can take that weapon of time and turn it into the tool that it was intended to be. Clearly, time is not an object or a substance that we touch or that we can even save. Don't you love that concept? I'm going to save time. First of all, like it needs to be saved. And second of all, like I can stop that. What I can do is I can be present to it and use it in every moment to be the expression I'm called into. And I mean every moment. Not just the good ones. Not just Sunday morning. Not just when I'm volunteering, not when I'm just being an amazing human being, but every moment stepping into that expression, time becomes a tool. And I get to be in charge. And there's not a whole lot of things I like more than that. How about you? Do you ever like to feel in charge of your life? This is a tool. This week, we marked the 18th anniversary of 9/11. Time stood still that day. We felt and experienced things that we had no points of reference for. And we can get on our knees and say, thank you, God, for the lessons learned. And we can hold our arms up in celebration of all that we're open to learn from now on. Time was the gift, has been the gift that has empowered us to remember, to heal, and to forgive. As infinite spiritual beings, it is irresponsible, in my humble opinion, if we do not honor the tool of the gift of time. It is through times like 9/11 that we come together and time stands still and we remember who we are. And time offers that to us. Some people will say, can you believe it was 18 years ago? Some people will say, can you believe it's only been 18 years? I am guessing there's not one person that was present that day in any of those buildings that doesn't run the scenario. If I had left 10 minutes earlier, or if I had left 10 minutes later. There is a divine time that's running through our lives. And I don't pretend to have the answer to know why some would have one experience and others would have a different one. But I can tell you that we can honor this tool of time and apply it to the infinite spiritual beings that we are, and use it so that we can continue to be those expressions. There are many seasons in our lives that give us the power to co-create and recreate situations, happenings, events, things in our life. So instead of racing against this thing we call time, in my experience this week of getting my arms wrapped around this, I recognized I could step into the grace of time. Recognize it as the gift and utilize it as the spiritual being that I am, rather than get really aggravated at it sometimes, rather than use it against myself or other people. When we start to appreciate the metaphysical definition is signifying the measure of events. That's the metaphysical definition of time. The events are the main thing that we remember. The months, the weeks, the hours, the seconds that we divide time into, they symbolize unfoldment. Every moment is another unfolding of who we are. What do you want this moment to look like? And what about the next one? And what about the next one? When we start to appreciate that this is the unfolding of our lives, and we step into those moments of grace, and we are free from the bondage of time, now, that tiny little blimp on that infinite timeline that we are a part of becomes so much easier to accept, so much easier to live through, so much easier to express at a greater and in a greater way. Florence Scovel Shinn says this, and you know I love Florence Scovel Shinn. We are fully equipped for the divine plan of our lives. We are fully equipped for the divine plan of our lives. We are more than equal or greater than any situation. In doing this, we take back our power over time. When we remember that we are fully equipped on this infinite timeline as spiritual beings walking through this finite life that we have right now, we get to claim again that we are fully equipped for the divine plan of our life. Time becomes a tool, not a weapon. One that we can offer up to everyone around us as we learn to express ourselves in greater ways. And Florence says this too. We could actually hear the hum of divine activity, for we would be linked with infinite intelligence, which knows no defeat. Opportunities will come to us from unexpected quarters. Divine activity would operate in and through all of our affairs, and the divine ideal would come to pass by realizing that we are fully equipped to live the divine work of our life. We had an 8-day clock when I was growing up. Fascinating when you're a kid, isn't it? It was made out of heavy steel and sat on a mantle, and I'd climb up on a stool, and it had one of those little keys, until it stopped. Don't go past, you'll break the spring. It's fascinating to me that clock would only run for 8 days. And I said, well, how does it know it's 8 days? And why does it stop running? And all of those questions that we would have. Fortunately, one of the gifts of time is that it creates space and it can pause. and you have control of that. Perhaps when we think about that 8-day clock, we should consider the rewinding of our spiritual clocks when we notice we're running down or we're losing time or we don't have enough of it. It may be your spiritual clock that needs to be rewound. Not a new battery, not a new phone. Maybe it's your spiritual clock that you're looking to rewind and run in alignment with the time that the divine has for you. Maybe we could transfer some of those 10,000 plus days that we spend looking at a screen and increase those days that we spend connecting and praying and being a part of each other's lives and showing up. Maybe, perhaps, we could spend more time winding up our spiritual clocks rather than spinning up the drama in our lives. Maybe. And we will remember that we are fully equipped for the divine plan of our lives. This was really an interesting concept to talk about time for me. And I invite you into considering the tool that it is and how it applies to your spiritual well-being and your growth, and how it gives you the opportunity to be a greater expression in any moment. Thank you for your time.